madume ka gae ke buša ke go amogela go Leihlo La Sechaba mathapameng a lekgono re bella go thupša ga batho ka dikgoka profenseng ya Gauteng mo go fitlheletšego maemong a masetlapelo mo go begwa gore magareng ga batho ba lesometee go ba go fihla go ba masomepedi-šupa ba thupša tšatši le lengwe le lengwe kotareng yona ye ya ngwageng ngwana woo. Dipalopalo tše di dira gore maAfrika Borwa ka kakaretšo ba phele ka letšhogo tšatši le lengwe le lengwe. Good evening. Kidnappings in Gauteng are at a crisis level, with an average of between 11 and 27 kidnappings reported every day during the first quarter of 2026. These numbers leave every South African, rich or poor, living in fear. Go kwešiša ka botlalo dipalopalo tše ke na le baeng go tšwa sephodiseng setsebi sa tša polokego le tšhireletšo le moemedi go tšwa Missing Children South Africa. Efela pele re tšwela pele re lebelela se.
Palo ya batho ba kwetilwang Afrika Borwa e phahame ka sekgahla se seholo. Maqulwana a dinokwane a fumane mokgwa o potlakileng o bonolo wa ho fumana tjhelete ka nako e kgutshwane mme tjhelete e ngata. Ka bomadimabe, mahlatsipa a mang ha a soka a fumanwa mme a mang a bolailwe. Province ya Gauteng e di hula ka pele ka palo ya batho ba kwetilwang e latelwe ke ya KwaZulu-Natal le Eastern Cape. Batho ba ka bang 50 ba kwetelwa letsatsi le leng le le leng. Ho ya ka dipalopalo tsa sepolesa, dinyewe tsa ho kwetelwa di se di tlotse 17,000.
More ke ya go leboga go sana le rena ke boletše fa gore ke na le baeng go tšwa sephodiseng ke na le yena Brigadier Athlenda Mathe ke na gape le Bianca Esviegen go tšwa Missing Children South Africa ke na gape le Andy Mashaile retired Interpol ambassador ebile le setsebi sa tšhireletšo le polokego. Ipša pele re thoma Brigadier ke botšiše gore fa dipalopalo tše le ka re thalela seswantšho ge re lebeletše tšona go thupša ka kgang go ba tšona di-kidnappings ka mo provinseng ya Gauteng bjale ka sephodisa dipalopalo tše le ka re thalela seswantšho gorena di reng di re botšeng.
Well, a very good evening and thank you for the opportunity. To be quite clear, we are having a challenge with regards to kidnappings in the country. When you look at our statistics between October 2025 to December 2025, we had more than 4,500 people kidnapped throughout the country. And indeed, according to our statistics, Gauteng is a hotspot because according to our stats, when you look at the top 30 stations that are bringing in the high number of kidnappings, of that top 30, 27 of those stations are in Gauteng, with Kempton Park number 1. Ivory Park is forming part of the top 5 that have the highest number of kidnappings that are reported. But what we have seen through our analysis is that sometimes kidnapping is not the main focus when these kidnappings are reported. It could be hijacking, it could be another crime such as extortion, it could be rape, it could be other forms of other crime. Because when you look at your kidnapping for ransom, we have managed to decrease that type of crime. When you look at kidnapping for extortion, we have managed to reduce that type of crime. And when you look at the kidnapping related to human trafficking as well, the numbers are going down. However, the challenge is that kidnapping forms part of other crimes. So for you to hijack me, you are going to have to kidnap me first. For you to rape me, you are going to have to kidnap me first. So it's always a secondary charge in the main charge that these suspects would be facing. But I think we've got dedicated teams in place as the SABC to fight this particular crime. Every week we are arresting those that are responsible. Just earlier this week we had a case of kidnapping in Ivory Park near Tembisa, where a young woman was kidnapped for the purpose of demanding a ransom from her family. Within hours we were able to trace that particular grouping, those people that were responsible for that, because one area where we are seeing a rise in is the kidnapping for, like they call it express kidnappings, where a person is hijacked or kidnapped with the sole purpose of forcing you to withdraw sums of money from your account.
Brigadier, Bianca, let me bring you in. It looks like South Africa is becoming a haven for this kind of crimes. We've been seeing people missing from time to time. Why is it that it's becoming such a problem here in South Africa now?
Definitely. I think kidnapping is also a very low risk, high reward type of crime, and that has also have the increase of the types of crimes that we are seeing, especially our children. We do see they are the most vulnerable to victim to such crimes. I think the increase has definitely to do with when we had lockdown and COVID-19. The syndicates have gotten very much sophisticated. We've got all these technology that has escalated to these syndicates also to up their game. And then also one of the main thing is social media, where we see our children are being groomed and lured and also kidnapped from there.
Andy, ke wena fa re lebeletse tsona di-kidnappings tse le gore tse dingwe tša tsona ke di-syndicates ka be le gore Afrika Borwa e tloga e ka kgona go lwantšhana le tsona di-syndicates tsona tše ya di phutlamiša mo e le gore re ka bona go thupša ga batho go fokotsega go ba go fela.
Yes, Ndate Mojapelo. South Africa has the capacity and has demonstrated that capacity of dismantling tsona di-team tse e leng gore di kidnapper batho, di thopa batho. And we have seen successful results in the return of a sizable number of those people of Indian origin, those businessmen of Indian origin.
Ntate Mashaile ke a leboga re tlo bua re tswela pele mo ge ka gae rona metse se shute gomme re bua re tswela pele ka yona taba ye re lebeletse go mathapeng a lekgono. Mo ge re bua re tswela pele mathapeng a lekgono re lebeletse gona go thupša ga batho ka kgang e le gore gongwe ba ka tla ba nyaka mašeleng gore batho ba lokollwe gomme ke sana le yena Brigadier Athlenda Mathe Bianca ga mmogo le yena Andy Mashaile. Andy, re tswela pele fa gore ge le sa bolela gore go ne le ka mokgwa e le goreng go bile le di-successful stories tse di bileng gona tša go bušwa ga batho go ipontšha gore Afrika Borwa e ka kgona go thupa lona ntwai.
Ntate Mojapelo, re bone a number of victims tsa kidnapping in the last 3-year cycle. Mo e leng gore SABC e sebedisana with some private security companies like both Vision Tactical and many others. E le gore ba khona gore SABC leading the charge go arrestiwe, go tshwariwe the perpetrators of this heinous crime ya kidnapping, and re ba bone ba boya as a 90% ya di successes re bone batho ba phela ba boela ko malapeng a bone back to their families alive, and it's only on a small number of occasions where lives were lost in this kidnapping crime.
Ke boele go lena Brigadier e ka ba ile gore go bonagala ga sephodisa mo ditseleng tša maphefo highway patrol mo ile goreng ba ka gona go hlapella batho ba ile goreng gongwe ba leka go thopa motho ka gang e ka ba ile gore go bontšha go e ba le matla jwang go thuša gona go netefatša gore batho ba bangwe ba ile goreng ba thupša ba humana.
Well, indeed, heightened police visibility plays a major role in assisting us to detect and rescue several victims of this type of crime. I remember last year in Soweto during a roadblock, a random stop and search, we managed to rescue a female who had just been hijacked and she was kidnapped. We managed to rescue her during that random stop and search operation. So that is why we are intensifying our operations. But the challenge though is that this type of crime is very organized, especially with the ransom kidnappings. So there is a lot of planning and coordination that goes into it. But even though there's that type of organized crime, we do have the Organized Crime Investigations Unit. We do have our crime intelligence that is working tirelessly to trace these perpetrators. I think in the last 2 years, more than 200 of these kidnappers were arrested, which would include South Africans, they would include include your foreign nationals and so on. And I think it was last year when we also shot and killed during a confrontation with police a kingpin from Mozambique who was involved in a number of high-profile kidnappings and so on.
Yes.
So there is a lot of resources, there is a lot of capacity that we are putting into the teams to ensure that we prevent and combat this type of crime.
E re ke botšiše gore re sa le gona moo re bone go e ba le lesolo la go bušetša batho nageng tša gabo bona e ka ba e le gore ona masolo a thuša go gongwe go hwetša le ba e le goreng e le banyaka or e ba monyetla wa gore ba bangwe ba kgone go tšhaba ge ntse batho ba bušetšwa dinageng tša bo bona.
Look, we don't look at crime according to nationality. We look at crime according to the person that has committed the crime. So like I've indicated, both foreign nationals and South Africans are involved in this type of crime.
Okay, ke tle go wena ntate Endi gore na e ka ba e le gore dipoledišano magareng ga di-province di thuša jwang go netefatša ka gore go ne le ba e le gore go gongwe motho a ka tšeiwa mo go mme a hwetša e le gore o kitimišetša provinceng ye nngwe e ka ba e le gore na dilo tša mohuta o di thuša jwang go netefatša le gore motho a feleletše a tšwele ka mo nageng bjale ka ge e le gore yona e ka no ba e le kidnapping but dingwe e ka ba e le di-human trafficking.
Ntate Mojapelo, re na le ntho e re bitsang cross boundary policing. Maphodisa a mo ke tsaletsweng mo teng in western area can go and operate ka mo East Rand. Le di traffic officer di a kgona operate yalo Ntate Mojapelo. And then I move on to when there is a sound relationship between the 9 provinces in terms of sharing of information that Aklenda Mate would say intelligence sharing it lead to the successes already burning registered more for the perpetrators of these crimes are arrested. If and when batho ba tswa ka South Africa ba isiwa ko mafatsheng a mang ke bua ka Mozambique, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Namibia re lebella dinaga tsa SADC go na le cooperation between South Africa and those countries, and obviously where there is a transnational crime that has been committed, your lead law enforcement agency in South Africa being SABC cooperating with your regional body Interpol, they do go out and hunt those suspects and rescue the victims of human trafficking.
Thank you. Let me bring you, Bianca. Given what has already been said by ND and Brigadier, do you think that the police are winning this fight against the kidnappings?
I think so, yes. We've seen a massive increase in kidnapping victims being found and also kidnapping syndicates being arrested. But I do think we as the general public also need to understand that there's a lot of cases that actually go unreported. People still actually lack trust within our police system. Sometimes the families are too scared to report these cases, and they're actually with these kidnapping syndicates by themselves. So it's very important to educate our public that if something like this actually happens to you, that you can trust the police system. There are dedicated units that work on these types of crimes, so please report that. When it comes to statistics, it always just gives us a general indication of the problem we're facing, as so many cases actually go unreported. Whether it is kidnappings, missing persons cases, or human trafficking, we see many of these cases not being reported. Go onto social media, you'll see flyers of missing children or missing persons out there. Those cases have not yet been even reported to the police. So that actually might be a kidnapping or human trafficking case, and we won't know about it.
Thank you very much, Bianca. More ke bue go gopotsa gape gore re lebeletse gona go thupja ga batho ka gang mo ile goreng go nyaka ga masheleng gore ba bue re rona metse ge re bua ka karolo ya boraro ibile le karolo ya mafelelo ya lenaneo. ke sa go leboga go sana le rena gomme re se re boa go nwa metsi re tswela pele ka lenaneo la rena la matapeng a lekgono re lebeletse go thopša ga batho ka kgang kudu ka provinceng ye ya Gauteng. Brigadier ke botšiše fa gore le šetše le boletse gore tše dingwe tše ke di-organized crime e ka ba e le gore di dirišwa go bona mašeleng a belwa jwang melato ya mohuta ona yo kudu-kudu go di-unit tša go swana le bo the Hawks ge go šetše go swerwe go ba go thupile motho e le goreng e ka ba e le high value ransom e nka e bja jwalo.
Well, we are working together as various units of the South African Police Service. So in a particular case, like I've indicated, it's quite an organized crime. So you would have a different expertise and capabilities of the SAPS working closely to ensure arrests, but most importantly, to ensure that we rescue victims. I think that is the most important element. And that is why we always urge the members of the public that should you fall victim of these particular kidnappings, especially for ransom, immediately report it to the police, because we have the expertise and the capabilities to deal decisively and to handle such situations. Yeah. Because you directly communicating or engaging with the kidnappers, it won't guarantee that your loved one will be released safe and unharmed. So we urge communities, as soon as this case, your loved one is kidnapped, or a family member or a colleague, report it immediately. Yeah. We do have the expertise. We've rescued, I think in the past year, more than 60 of those victims that were kidnapped for especially ransom demands.
Bianca, let me bring you in. You've already mentioned the grooming, of which some of these kidnappings start online. How can parents monitor, especially where children are concerned, or even themselves? How can one monitor one's online footprint in order for one to protect themselves against a potential kidnapping that can happen after one has built a rapport with the victim?
Yes, parents need to be very vigilant about what their children are busy with on social media. Social media has created a platform for our children, especially with online chat forums where people create false profiles. They lure a child. It starts as an innocent conversation or an innocent question, and it ends up in a far more disastrous situation. We do see this quite often where children are especially being taken for human trafficking purposes, or even children being lured for kidnapping, rape, and murder. So we do ask parents to please monitor your children's social media use. Know what they are busy with, who they're chatting, what messages they are sending on social media. There are some wonderful apps that parents can download. There's a free app such as Google Family Link. You can monitor exactly what your child is busy with. You can stop whatever they're busy with if you see something is wrong, or you can even monitor their screen time. So we ask parents and guardians to please implement these safety measures to keep our children safe.
Yeah. Ndade Andy ke bua go wena ke botšiše gore na jwale ka gare šetse re lemogile gore gona go thupša mo go direga ge motho a tšeola sefatanaga goba ba tšeiwa gore ba humane tšhelete ka pela motho a išiwe ATM-ong e ka ba e le gore ke afe maela e le gore le ka fa batho ka kakaretšo go netefatša gore motho wa bolokega o kgona go bona ge gongwe ge e le gore selo se sengwe a se sepele gabotse go gongwe se ka ba thuša gore ba feletše ba bolokegile.
Raymond, re na le ntho e re bitsang threat and a risk assessment kit. A threat and risk assessment kit for you as an individual, for 4 of us on this program. You need to know, number one, the car that I'm driving, is it one of those cars that are on the top 10 of hijackings? We put up number two, before you pull out of your driveway, you need to go by your gate, open your gate or the small gate and look around for people who are loitering, people who you have never seen before. And you need to ask that individual if he's there. Do you need help? Who are you looking for? There's a number of things, Raymond, in that threat and risk assessment kit. When you do it, you reduce the level of risk and you eliminate the threat that might happen to your life and your limbs. It's very important that as adults, we need to continuously monitor risk around ourselves, our behavior. When you drive out, are you on your cell phone?
Yeah.
Are you allowing the car just to roll out whilst your eyes are not looking at your blind spot, whilst you are focusing in on your cell phone? That is a serious threat.
Ke kgopela go wena brigadier re bone matšatšinyana a go feta mo e le goreng go bile le kgonono ya gore motho o pharwa ka molato wa gore o fakile kidnapping ya gagwe moralo ka kgwele ya maoto wa go tuma e ka be le gore na dilo tša mohuta woo di senya bjang didirišwa tša mmušo kudu-kudu tša sephodisa le ona mašeleng a e le goreng a tla ba beilwe go netefatša gore ba nyaka batho ba e le goreng ba dirile bošula bo.
Well, firstly, that matter is still under investigation and no arrests have been made. But I think we need to caution community members that it is a serious criminal offense to open a false case. You can be charged with perjury and you can be charged with defeating the ends of justice, like we've seen in the Brown Mogotsi case, where it's alleged that he staged his own attempted assassination. So such cases really divert the capacity and the resources where they are most needed. It diverts our attention to the cases that really require police assistance. So we are urging the people of South Africa really to be responsible in when reporting cases, and only report genuine cases, so that together we fight crime and reduce the levels of crime in the country.
Bianca, in few seconds, what would be your advice to parents out there who at some point are fearful of their children playing out there, going to school, or maybe sometimes just being in their neighborhood?
Safety is priority. Our children are our future, so we have to look after them. Safety also starts at home. So parents and guardians have the responsibility to educate themselves and their children on how to keep themselves safe. Children should always be under adult supervision and never be left unattended, especially playing outside or walking to the shop by themselves.
Thank you. Andy, molaetša wa gago wa mafelelo ge re tswalela lenaneo go batho gore ba kgone go šireletšega?
Engage with your station commander, engage with your station management, invite them to churches, invite them to schools.
Maele a lena go batho ka kakaretšo ge re tswalela?
Well, we encourage the people of South Africa to work closely with the South African Police Service. Together we can fight crime and we will win this war against crime.
Baeng ba ka ba lekgono Bianca go tšwa Missing Children South Africa Ndima Shaile ga mmogo le yena brigadier ke tloga ke le leboga mo re ka gae re fitlhile mafelong a lenaneo la bošegong bja lekgono buša o be le rena gape la bobedi le letlago ge nako e le iri ya seswai mathapama gona mo SABC 2 o ka re ngwalela ka email go leihlo.la-sechaba@sabc.co.za go ba re ngwalelago letlakala la Leihlo La Sechaba go Facebook manane wa Leihlo La Sechaba a hwetšagala go YouTube go ka lenaneo le latelago theletša Thobela FM le Lesedi FM le Motsweding FM ka labobedi mesong go tšwa go nna ke Raebe Boroko Shalang.